This is Red Dog Terrain. Welcome back to the shed. Today we're building an aqueduct. So I wanted to build an aqueduct. I'm not really sure why I wanted to build it, but I did know that I wanted to do a bunch of brickwork. It's been a while since I've done a whole lot of brickwork, but in the end this didn't really turn out to be an aqueduct because the front part doesn't connect to anything, and I had a wall so it ended. So maybe like it's the part of an aqueduct where like the water falls down and it catches it at the beginning and then becomes an aqueduct. But apparently I don't know how aqueducts work. I made a template out of thick cardstock, and then I cut out the frame with cheap dollar store foam board. Next I grab a big chunk of XPS foam and cut little squares, rectangles that would go between the other foam to make it more rigid, give it more support. I laid the white foam down and then put the blue braces in between, and then realized that that's not how that's going to work. So I flipped it up on its side and then putting the two pieces, the blue parts, together with the white, gluing them all together and putting a whole bunch of pins in there. I cut more cardstock that would go into the arches and all around. It didn't have to be perfect because I knew this would be covered up with a whole bunch of bricks. While I pin all this together, I would like to thank the band Aya for the use of their music in all of my videos. This song is off their latest album. It's a live album. Go check it out. Link in the description. Go to Bandcamp. This is a strip of the blue XPS foam. It's about 3/4 of an inch thick all the way around, and then I cut an angle on it. This is going to make the feet, at least the first set of feet for it. The first set of bricks I wanted nice and chunky. The next part would be a little different. I ran all this through my Proxon, made quick work of it. Now here's one of the best things that I've built on the channel. It's just a big dog container with a bunch of, with 2 paddles hot glued in there, some PVC pipe on either side. I made this little frame, dropped a bunch of bricks and bolts in there, attached my drill, put on a zip tie, and then made easy brickwork. My homemade brick foam tumbler doesn't do the best job of making them look really distressed, but it's enough to knock off those edges so they look more like real stone rather than sharp foam. I glued the 3/4 inch thick foam on 3 sides of the base. I didn't put it on the inside part. Those just got the thinner ones, which would actually go on top of the 3/4 ones on the other sides. All that'll make sense on the next shot. You'll see. I had already started putting a couple layers of the white small bricks when I realized I kind of made a big mistake. I should have black Mod Podged everything first. The reason for this is to strengthen the foam, but also that way if there's any gaps between the foam, you don't see it as well. It'll be, dark shadows, not just bright white foam or blue or cardboard underneath. I don't do a whole lot of shout outs on the channel, but I'd like to ask you to check out some friends of mine who have been super supportive. First up is Rab, who's an old school RuneScape player. I don't know anything about RuneScape, but he sure does. He knows the history of it, and he's quite entertaining to watch. Next up is Halcyon Overseer, aka Coach. He does a lot of charity streams. He plays Destiny 2. Real good guy. Lastly is my amazing partner, Hylionyx. She streams World of Warcraft, and she's got our puppies, and occasionally you'll see me in the background. As best as I can tell, I cut and glued 635 bricks for this piece. There's something kind of nice about doing brickwork like this. I've seen and I've done where you just kind of score the lines in on a big sheet and slap it on there. But I think doing individual bricks really adds a lot to it. There's a lot more spaces in between, and you get a lot more variation, and I think it looks better. Well, for most parts. There's things. There are definitely buildings or scenes that more structured and even brickwork looks better. But in general, I prefer individual bricks. I knew I wasn't going to build an entire aqueduct system, so I had to end this somewhere. So I decided that maybe it got hit by a meteor or smashed, or maybe a giant fell on it, not really sure. But I wanted the rest of the what was left to look good, like it was still well built and kind of new, but just the end had gotten smashed up. That's why I didn't distress it as much as I could have, and that's why at the end I don't put nearly as much moss or a grime on it. And just like with about every foam project I do, I covered the whole thing in the secret sauce, which is of course just black paint and Mod Podge. This seals everything in, it gives it some shadows, and strengthens the foam, protects it a little bit. I'll give everything a base coat of gray and then pick out the thick bricks. I do in a wrought iron paint, which is like a dark green gray, and then pick out a few colored bricks before I put on the washes. Well, that explains it. A collection of officials from the Office of Magic, Engineering, and Construction stood on the edge of a high cliff shaking their heads. Below them should have been a series of aqueducts carrying water to the city. The foreman turned to his apprentice. A few years ago, we diverted a tributary from the River Thames to our east. That's the one we visited yesterday. The aqueducts channel the water to the city. The apprentice nodded her head. The water travels down and feeds into Lake Mulholland. That's where we get our water, for the farms and the cattle and the fishery. Once again, the apprentice quietly nodded. Let's go take a closer look. The foreman and the apprentice stepped out of the large elevator basket. The apprentice said, "What happened?" "You see the claw marks on its neck." She nodded again. "They can be very territorial. I'm guessing this young buck thought he could move in and quickly found out he couldn't." The water was still flowing from what was left of the aqueduct, pouring on the corpse of the young green dragon laying on top of the rubble pile. After an all-over black wash, oil wash, and then a spots of brown wash, and then a dry brush, I was ready to start putting moss on. Like I said before, I didn't want to put a whole bunch of moss. I wanted to look like this was somewhat taken care of. So after finishing and proudly showing my D&D group, I realized that this is a terrible, terrible aqueduct. I'm not even sure if it would work or qualify as an aqueduct at all. Got it in one. The top is flat where it should be curved. The walls that would hold in the water are very low and you wouldn't be able to have a whole bunch of water. One side just kind of has a wall, so therefore it wouldn't allow the water to flow. I don't know what this is. They said it was a bridge, or maybe it was a pier. It also looks like an ATM-6 from Star Wars. No matter what it is, I hope it's fun to play on. I'll let the music play as we go to the glamour shots. Thanks for watching.